Hi, welcome back to the Forge. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to stop and watch my video. This project was inspired by another Swedish blacksmith, Filip Lufolk, who made this awesome stump holder. And if you by any chance don't know who Filip Lufolk is, I'm gonna link his YouTube down below so you can check him out, and you should, because he really makes cool stuff. Anyway, let's get forging, and I hope you enjoy it. Here I have a 12mm square bar. I'm going to start off by making a downset to about a little less than half the thickness and about 20 to 25mm in. And when we're done with that, I'm going to take it down to a pointy taper, and that's going to become the horns of the dragon. Now I'm going to start to taper this part into a point. Just like that. And now I'm going to take down the corners on all sides, and then we're going to make the texture for the horns. I'm going to repeat this step on this side and this side. So what we're going to do now is take a chisel and split the horns. So we're going to start off by making a mark cold so we can find it later when it's hot. Now that we're almost through, I'm going to put the plate on the anvil so that when we go through with the chisel, it won't damage the anvil. Now we get to choose how long the face is going to be for the dragon. So I'm going to make a set down there maybe. So I'm going to make a mark now so we can find it later when it's hot. Just like that. On projects like this is where the coal forge really shines. Because in a coal forge we can heat up just this part and leave the horns out of the heat, so we don't overheat or burn them off. You can see right there we have a sharp edge, and I have to grind that off before we continue, or else that's gonna end up in a cold shut, and that can lead to cracks. this stuff, the white powder you saw me pour on, that is called flux, and we use that to loosen up the scale so that when we strike with the hammer, it helps flush out the scale. Brush, flux, repeat. You don't need much of this stuff. I'm going to take one more welding heat just to blend the seam. So the weld came out really nice. And those sparks you saw on the first welding heat is actually molten scale that shoots out from the steel when we hit it. So from here we can start creating the face of the dragon. We're gonna start by setting down where the eye's gonna be and draw out the snout and upset it a little bit out here. I'm starting off and marking out the eyes and the snout cold, so it's easier to find later on. The lower jaw I'm gonna open up with a chisel when it's hot, and I'm gonna forge out like a more tongue-like lower jaw. Okay, now I'm gonna switch to a lighter hammer and start forging out the tongue jaw. Now I just want to take a chisel and create some teeth. Then we can bend the horns to shape, and then the head is done. Okay, so now that we're pretty much done with the features of the face of the dragon, I'm gonna start bending the neck into shape. And to do that, we're gonna heat it up, quench it off in water. And in order to not destroy the face we just did, we're gonna use a piece of wood instead of a hammer to do that. Okay, so now I just want to bend the horns in place, and we got ourselves a dragon. Now that the dragon head is complete, I'm gonna start forging this into a reverse taper. Since I don't have a specialized dragon head holding tongue, it's gonna be easier to forge it this way. And as always, I'm gonna start off by making a mark so I can find it later when it's hot. Here I have a rough sketch of how I want the part that's gonna hold the candle to look. And this I'm just gonna grind out with the angle grinder. Now that the rough grind is done, I'm gonna refine the shape with files. Now I'm gonna use this jig which is the same size of an average candle. I'm going to heat up this part and put it in the middle there and start bending it around. This ring that we're creating right now, we don't want that to be really snug on a candle, because we're going to make a spring later on that's going to push the candle into this wall to keep it in place. Now when I use this piece that we broke off earlier from the dragon as a template to make this part match up with the thickness of the dragon. Okay, let's see if we have a good fit now. That fits nicely. Let's check with a candle. That's also good. So, I had a bit of a mishap. The forge weld was actually starting to open up when I was correcting the head. I think I was hitting it too cold. And the crack was getting dangerously big, so I took the MIG welder and spot welded it and then ground it off. It's not the end of the world, but it's not as nice as if it weren't MIG welded. At first I was gonna put the candle and the dragon straight up like this, but I actually kind of like it better when the dragon tilts back a little bit and the candle is straight. So I think I'm gonna go with that. Take a center punch and make a mark and then drill through. And I'm gonna put this piece over like this. And then we're gonna take a 6mm round bar straight through and pin it on both sides so we create a rivet that will hold it in place. Okay, so the formula I use for rivet heads is I take 1.5 times the diameter of the rivet stock, and in this case this is a 6mm. So I want 9mm to stick out on each side of this outer part. And then you just add up the numbers. So we have 9mm on this side and on the other, so that's 18mm. And this just happens to be 18mm as well. So we end up with 36mm. So to set the rivet, I'm gonna cold set it first. So I'm gonna put it like this and take a hammer and hit on it just to snug it up so it stays in place when we heat it up and actually form the rivet heads. And this doesn't matter if it's down like this, because before we really set the rivet I'm gonna push it up in correct position. There we go, now it's kind of snug. Now we heat it up and we set the rivets. Now let's finish this one up. Now that the ring is put in place, I can see that it's a tiny bit off center. So I'm gonna heat it up again, put it in the vise, and trying to correct that. Now it's time to make the spring part that's gonna push the candle against the ring. And for that I'm gonna use the same material as for the rivet, 6mm round bar. So I'm gonna flatten it out, then I'm gonna weld it onto the part that's gonna go into the wooden piece. Now I want to curl the tip a little bit back, and then we're going to bend this in a bow. Okay, let's test it out with a candle. So push the spring back, put the candle in, and release. And it holds the candle real snug. The dragon has now been soaking in white vinegar for about 48 hours, and I've just rinsed it off and scrubbed it with some steel wool. Also I neutralized it with some baking soda. So now we can start working on the base for the candle holder. So this is the block of wood that's going to become the base for the candle holder. I'm just going to start off by chamfering the edges a bit. And since we can't drill a square hole, I'm going to heat up this part and then push it into the hole, and that will burn off the edges, and that will give us a square hole that fits this perfect. Okay, so now that we got our square hole where the dragon fits perfectly, now I want to take the torch and burn the whole block, and then brush off the soot with a wire brush. When I do this, I always go with the wire brush with the grain of the wood, so you don't go against it, because that's going to create some really rough scratches. As you can see here, I got some bright spots, so I'm going to burn these again and repeat the process. If you tilt your wire brush a bit, it's not as aggressive as if you were going like this. Now all there's left to do is to give the dragon a black finish. I'm going to do that with burning in some boiled linseed oil. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.